Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind at the Table. I'm Toby from Hyperion Business Solutions, and today we've got a super fascinating discussion lined up, especially for lawyers and law firms who care about efficiency, compliance, and the future of legal tech. I'm joined by Jean-Philippe Couture, founder of Ingenio, a cutting-edge legal tech startup that's modernizing corporate law with the Law Society's blessing. Ingenio automates annual filings and more for law firms, and it has changed the game in how legal professionals manage corporate records. JP, welcome to Mind at the Table. You've had a fascinating career from corporate and tax law to founding a tech company. What pain points did you experience in legal practice that led you to Ingenio?
There's several pain points. Essentially, the way it started, I think we have in many industry, like a demographic problem where, for example, about 20% of the staff and people supporting lawyers and lawyers themselves are within 55 and 65 years of age. So that means in 10 years from now, they'll retire. There's also a large volume of compliance work that is relatively simple, but done still very manually, which creates a whole lot of errors and creates an environment that is really prone to errors. So that started a little bit like that, and then along the way, there's new problems that were added up, and then also some of our clients are over the years brought to us some issues they were facing, and we've worked with them to try to solve these problems for them.
It's interesting, and you brought up one thing I just want to expand upon maybe just a tiny bit, JP, and that is you mentioned the aging lawyers in the legal profession and not as many coming in to fill. Does that apply as well to paralegals?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's pretty much across the board. It changed a little bit per province, but it's around 20% on average in Canada. So that is between 55 and 65. It's well documented. The BDC did a study a few years back on that, and also the movement of people between different firms is a lot more prevalent than it used to be. Probably my father or your father would have been in one firm from the beginning of their career to the end. Nowadays, people move around a little bit more. So all these transition is just one more occasion to create problems and errors. And at the end of the day, it affects the clients and the relationship with the clients.
Makes sense, and also makes sense that if you can introduce technology or SaaS-based solutions that would be greatly assist in the turnover as well as the lack of replacements that are coming up. So Ingenio isn't just another SaaS though. So it's built with Law Society compliance in mind. How did you earn their trust, and what does that mean for firms that are going to use your platform?
Actually, we've looked at all the regulations around technology that are implemented by the law societies in Canada, and we always take the more stringent in everything. So if British Columbia is the one that is the more strict about data residency, we take that one. But we went above and beyond that. We look at standard for other professionals, such as healthcare, and what kind of privacy settings that they have, and things like that. Really. And let's be honest, system for law firms and lawyers are, they're commonly in use when they're in use, are quite old. Some of them are software that are 30 years old. Even modern software, there's not a huge effort put onto the privacy and the security, which is central to everything that we do.
And so Ingenio promises digital corporate records by the book. How does it automate annual filings and reduce the manual errors that do occur?
So essentially, we look at the whole process the way it is done by a law firm today, and there's a series of considerations. For example, law firms file these annual returns. Typically, they don't want to file them with the registries until they've been paid by the client, because then they incur a series of costs. They're fine to prepare the document for it, but not to file. So we essentially went back and deconstructed the whole workflow and built it, and then tested it with law firms and said, okay, test it and let us know what you have. I think the most challenging one is the billing. It's integrating with the billing so that it's efficient, but also to make sure that the information is correct, that it's just not generated the way it was last year, without having some form of validation to ensure that the data hasn't changed, whether it's the address of the stakeholders, whether it's any other information that is relevant to the company.
Okay, so smart onboarding and e-signature tools sound powerful, cool. Can you walk us through how they integrate and work with a firm's existing systems?
So what we call smart onboarding essentially is, how do we take a binder, because most corporate records are still largely held in a binder on a shelf in a law firm. So how do we take that binder and bring it entirely into the digital world in a relatively fast manner and in a reliable, so that the data that is onboarded is accurate, and not only just scan them and just say leave them in a static state there and say you can go and scroll down the big PDF file that we've scanned, but to really go and extract the data. And then that generates a whole series of future functionalities of, supporting lawyers and law firms to say, for example, is there a way when you onboard new clients to run some kind of health check to understand, the file that you're onboarding on behalf of your client, is it accurate? Is it correct? Or is there deficiencies to correct? So all of this is the opportunity with smart onboarding and AI. I mean, at the same time, AI brings another dimension to the security, privacy, and all of these. So really, there is a multitude of possibility there, but there's also a multitude of, it's quickly exponential what you need to look at to ensure that you remain compliant, whether it's a data residency, whether it's what model they're using, is it on servers, is it where is it hosted, and things like that. So so we've been moving in that direction for a while now, and we've built sort of a bit of a process to get there. And also, realistically, like everybody else, like we've all discovered ChatGPT at the same time, but the question you always ask yourself is ChatGPT still the dominant model? And if you're using another model, or if another model moves faster than GPT model, how do you stay on top of the tech innovation without jeopardizing everything that we've talked about in terms of privacy, security, and all of these things?
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of questions around the security of using things like AI. And so the fact that you've developed a model currently that is blessed and, being used already actively by law firms can give a lot of confidence to people, I would imagine. So let's just say that a law firm is watching right now. Like, can you give a quick walkthrough of how they'd use Ingenio from start to finish to, implementing it?
Yeah. So essentially, we're really what we call a white glove service. So we send somebody to the firm, and essentially they scan for us the records. One of the things that we ran into as an issue is, lawyers are reluctant to have their records leave their premises to go somewhere else to get scanned. There's also a cost factor and everything. So we've worked through with a partner essentially that goes into the firm, set up shop into a boardroom, and then just start scanning those minute books there, so they never leave the property. So it's a lot easier to manage. If law firms wants to keep them, they can keep them paper. We offer a series of options to say to law firm, you can keep them just the way they are on a shelf and just stop updating them. You can send them back to the client. You can send them to storage. You could even technically shred them if you want, but they're, as you can imagine, everybody's a little bit more gun shy about that one. So there's a series that are pushing, and then from that point on, we just take control and just help the client get onboarded, ensure that the data is validated and it's proper, and then once they're on the platform, they get access to their data, also the documents, individualized documents, a full history of the company. And then the fun starts. Like, what I call the fun is like more like the transaction on a go forward basis. What do you do, whether it's the annual maintenance, whether it's the regular transactions that are required in the life of a company? The challenge with all this whole process is it looks really nice in practice for a law firm to adopt a software and do this, but a lot of them, as we developed our offering, we realized that a lot of them would be left on their own to do a lot of these individual tasks. So for us, it came sort of natural to say, okay, let's do more like a white glove service where we take care of them from the beginning to the end until they're fully functional into the software. And it just increased user adoptions as well as part of that process.
Thinking you're setting the stage for law firms to expect you to show up in a butler's outfit with the white gloves and start handling all their documents. So better be careful what expectations you set. So
Yeah,
but
probably.
in reality, this is a big headache in the legal profession, and Ingenio solves it for law firms. How much time or cost savings are we talking about?
I mean, there's huge cost saving, and there's different way of quantifying that cost saving. So, one important one we know with a lot of law firms that we talk with is the annual maintenance. Very often, they don't really have the staff because it's manual, repetitive, and boring. They have to, hire staff to do this. Staff doesn't really like to do it, so there's a high turnover in these positions, and a lot of them are late. I would say most of them are late. We've ran into anywhere from being behind by 1 month all the way up to 18 months behind. What does that mean? That means that, for example, first and foremost is you don't invoice your client until the work is done. So if you're 18 months behind, that means you're 18 months behind your invoicing and your revenues. The second thing is, like in Alberta, for example, registry starts sending letter at 12 months when you're 12 months in and say, hey, you're late. So you end up with a lot of professionals that are on the phone talking to their client, reassuring them, say, hey, yeah, we were a little bit late, but there's not yet any big consequences of that. And then there's also, there's a whole series of issues that develop around that. More you're late, the less people you have. It becomes a little bit like a flywheel and accelerate human resources issues. It's harder and harder to keep paralegals and keep them happy and keep them on staff. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would also think you can't bill a client for calling up and asking why their filing hasn't been completed. So if it's tying up any time for you or your staff, it's lost revenue that you're. And the other side that you already mentioned too is this is uncaptured revenue. Otherwise, it's sitting there available. It's just got to be invoiced as long as the work gets done, which Ingenio helps solve for very easily. So. Any standout success stories, early adopters, firms that have seen big results from implementing Ingenio?
We have some firms that, honestly, if you look at how much volume they were handling per employees, have essentially tripled that. But by using the automation, they're keeping their staff more happy because they don't have to do the boring things. Because we live in an era where people start doing things, and if it's a little bit too boring, then they like, okay, give me the good work or the challenging work, the work that is not manually repetitive. And manual repetitive also creates a whole bunch of errors. So we've seen like huge success stories in there. We have firms that used to be behind by 5-6 months in their annual returns, and they're now fully caught up. Sometimes they're 45 days, ahead of time. They know they can predict exactly what will be the volume of work next month with that, or what's going to go out next month in terms of billings. So it just brings so much more predictability.
I would think both the fact that it's repetitive opens up the opportunity for errors to happen, but you brought up another point is that it's the less desirable work. So probably typically you have junior staff that's working on it, and they're looking to graduate from that position as quickly as possible, not have to do it anymore. So you have both the repetitiveness that's causing the potential for errors, plus the junior positions that are handling it. That opens up the opportunity for errors, which are all mitigated by the software. So I see the value in that as well. You touched on this earlier too. Security is a non-negotiable in legal tech. So how does Ingenio's cloud-native infrastructure meet those standards?
Really early on, one of the first things we did is we subscribed to a tool that help us monitor the security throughout the process. Not just what's going on with the software, but also being certified for security involves a series of adopting policies from, all of your employees, for example, having automatic lock on their computer after so many seconds of inactivity, then the computer locks, like having all these things, physical security, policies, like wide ranging policies. So very early on, Ingenio started in 2019. I think within a year, we already had subscribed to one of these tools that help us shape these policies, keep them up to date, but also monitor how we're doing with these policies. So that you do all of this to eventually bring you to a security certification. So there's a whole body of certification out there. I won't bore you with the details, but quickly we went to one first certification. Several months later, we went to the second level of certification, which we're still at, which is sort of a prevalent one in legal tech. So really, we've really focused on one, setting up the highest standard. These tools also help you because when you approach firms, sometimes they will ask you questions. So, well, you have the certification to answer these questions, but you also have a guide where you can give it to them and say, these are all the steps we've taken to protect your data, your client's data. So these are all things. But also, I think with modern technology, like with modern cloud, there's a lot of monitoring that can be done. So all the big platform, whether it's through AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure, they offer a series of tools to monitor what's going on, with your platform. Is somebody trying to attack you or hack you? So right away if somebody tries it. And then every year we get, as part of our security certification, we pay white hat hackers to try to hack in. So essentially, this is something, a process that we're going to start next month. But once a year we do that. Once a year, or if we change anything relating to the access of the application, then we get somebody to come in and test it. Somebody external. So because you have your team of engineer, and they have their nose in it for such a long time. After a while, maybe they wouldn't see those things. So if you get somebody external, they come in, they have professional tools. That's all they do, and then they for a little while they try to hack you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think bears repeating or focusing on is the fact that you are a lawyer, a practicing lawyer, so you deal with security from the start. Not like a tech company on the same level as a tech company, I should say, wouldn't be on the same level as a law firm in protecting data and security features. Specifically, legal tech may be more in tune with that, but you're covering it from both angles, both from the legal tech angle and from a law firm perspective, being a lawyer yourself. So that would bring a lot of confidence to your customers, I would assume. But what's been the toughest challenge in building Ingenio? Convincing traditional firms, scaling automation, or is it something else altogether?
Before I tackle the challenge, I just want to add one point that we haven't talked about. This was the fact that I'm a lawyer and I'm building for lawyers was actually one of the key generating idea behind Ingenio, essentially. Because when we looked around, I was a purchaser of technology before I was a builder of technology. I was trying to find technology that was good, practical, that I wouldn't have to spend 2,000 hours to get trained on it or to get it set up properly so that it works. And that was evolving at a good pace and doing the work that it's supposed to do the work. And we just couldn't find it. All we would find sometimes is, tech companies that offer like a decent product, but that is not necessarily aligned with the reality or the practicality of having a legal practice. So really, we're not perfect there, but we're constantly getting feedback from our clients. We're constantly adding that feedback into our development loop. But this was really central. How do we marry or align as closely as possible legal practice with the tech? Like build the legal knowledge into the technology. So now to the challenge, the fun part. I think one of the biggest challenges, everybody would tell you this, is probably the data itself. It's unstructured data. It's in a binder on a shelf in the law firm. You can test as much as you want your data, but sometimes it's like 25-year-old data. Then you go back into scanning your clients and you find them corporate minute books from 1956. And then throws everything out the window. And so this is definitely the challenge. I would say the data, but also sometimes the quality of the data, because if the lawyers sometimes have changed over the years, you can imagine a minute book from 1956 has probably been several lawyers who've worked on it, different practice, different style. There's sometimes data that is missing. Like we recently were onboarding a client where there was 10 years of documents that were missing. Clients didn't know about it because essentially this was a practice that joined them much later. So they inherited these records, and then the first thing they find out is, oh, shoot, there's 10 years of records that is missing. The AI can be very useful, but the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't supplement a hole in the record. So these are all, I would say, definitely the biggest challenge is the data itself, the quality of the data. We got wonderful tools to improve it and to work on it, but they will remain a challenge for foreseeable future. Another challenge too is building a tech team, building a team. In my previous life, I had built a legal team, and I always say that it takes about 18 months to, you hire people left and right. They're all good people, but until they work together, they're fully aligned and they're pushing the same direction. Building a tech company is the same way. I think for the first couple of years we were in business, we did a lot that, at the end of the day, today there's very little left of it. But I mean, there's value to it, because if we had not gone through that process, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think building a tech team is not an easy thing. Especially we were doing it in the middle of a pandemic, where we would put one post for one engineer, and then in our building there was a fairly booming tech company from Calgary that would put 90 posts or 100 posts for the same with the same description. So this was definitely a harder one, but once you have established a really good core of your team, then you just built on that, and it ends up working well.
So since you're a founder of a tech company and a practicing lawyer of your own legal firm, I assume you just don't sleep.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because initially the idea I had in my head was to practice part-time and do the tech part-time. You can not do any of these things part-time. So I can confirm after 6 years that none of this can be done part-time. So, but I mean, at the same time, I think the fact that I still do some legal work brings in our feed into the feedback loop of the software.
Yeah, that makes sense. We won't interview your family at the moment. We'll wait till a couple years down the road to see what they feel.
I have a 3-year-old.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, life is, you got your hands full. So kudos to you for all that you're accomplishing, despite everything requiring a good amount of your time. So what's next? Where's Ingenio headed next? Any plans to expand beyond corporate records or into new legal verticals, since we've just established you have so much time?
I think what's next is probably not expand anytime soon outside corporate records. I think there's something to be said to keep a certain focus on corporate records and say, this is what we do. This is the only thing we do. And then we're just going to make sure we're the best at it. I think where we're going to probably expand is to add new jurisdiction, because when you start, the more specialized you are, the more, settings you're required per province, per jurisdiction. So it is still a bit of a process to add one more province, but I think, enhancing the coverage to become eventually a solution available across Canada is definitely on our radar. It's definitely something we want to do relatively quickly on short order. But I think, there is much more in terms of services to be offered on the platform than our base subscription and a few other services. There's very often it's the clients who will reach out to us and say, hey, have you guys thought about offering this type of service as part of your offering? Where I won't name the company, but some are saying, oh, we're actually paying this other company, Toronto-based company that is, to do this for us. And we would love to, essentially they're volunteering to pay us money to do the work, to do that service for them. So which is, to me, it's a good compliment. It means that we're actually doing certain things right for them, and that it's working really well for them.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that too. And it brings up another question that, people watching might be interested in knowing, and that where are you active in what markets currently, and which market is logistically next for you?
So right now we're handle federal, BC and Alberta. I would say mostly focused Western Canada, and we're slowly sort of moving east. But really, like we're not in a rush. Like there's 3.5 million companies in Canada. There's over 1 million of them just between Alberta and BC. You're probably heading another 300 or 400 federal. So it's a massive market. So we're not in a rush. Eventually, probably we'll add. I think a natural other market would be probably Ontario. I think usually we always look for an anchor clients in a jurisdiction when we launch in a new jurisdiction, and early adopters that in that space, and we go from there.
You might start to get a backlog of volunteers to be early adopters in the next provinces. So we've kind of touched on this already a little bit, but as a founder with deep legal roots, what's one lesson that's really shaped how you have innovated for the legal space?
I think I think to think. I don't want to say think big, but to not be afraid to challenge the most difficult problems. I feel far too often, I noted that as a consumer of legal technology, we were, when I was at PwC, the legal group there, we were one of the earliest clients, or the first big client that Closing Folders had. Closing Folders, for those who know, was a huge success and ended up being sold to High Manage. Like two very good founders, solid, two lawyers. So really that's a little bit what we're doing, is we're trying to we start from the problem, and then we find a solution to the problem of lawyers. We're not trying to solve problems of accountants or architects or engineer. We're really focused on corporate lawyers and law firms, and say, okay, how do we improve your experience, but also your client's experience? 65% of legal clients want more digitalization and digital services and self-service. This is something that came out a few years back in a study conducted by Clio. I am pretty sure that this is even higher in today's, like this is probably 4 or 5 years old, but I am fairly certain that this is even higher. So it's not really a choice. You can offer a service. If clients don't see the value in the service you're offering, you have a problem. You won't be able to have your revenue sort of grow with the service that you're offering. What we're focused on is how do we offer the same service in a much more efficient way, but also in a much more innovative way for clients, so that they see greater value into that service and with less waste. Like if you take the whole Japanese production method, like less waste, essentially, less error and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you start to think about it, I mean, I know from an accounting perspective, with some exposure in the past, a new merger or acquisition between accounting firms and this record transfer and going back in old records for clients, there's often, a lot of gaps, and it presents challenges for sure. My own personal experience with real estate in Alberta is I would love to see some type of e-sign for registries, because what a pain in the butt it is sometimes to try and get wet ink to lawyers to close a transaction. So there's certainly a lot of different places within law, accounting, and professional designations where a lot of efficiencies can be gained with new technology advancements. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that happens in the future. JP, this has been exciting. And last question that I have, in case any law firms or other opportunity-seeking professionals are out there today, would you still welcome discussion with investment partners or potential investment partners?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in, we're growing this company. We want to make it a Canadian success. So yeah, we're definitely looking at any form of partnership out there. Yeah, anything that improves the
Awesome.
product and allows us to be, and even more relevant solutions for our clients. We're completely open to consider that.
Yeah, speed to open up new markets and different things that capital can help resolve for, right? So thanks for letting us know, and thanks for sharing how Ingenio is transforming corporate law today.
Thank you very much.
So if you're a law firm ready to streamline your records, free up your paralegals, reduce errors, improve client satisfaction, collect low-hanging revenue while improving compliance, reach out to us for a demo. And if you enjoyed this episode of Mind at the Table, like and follow for more conversations with the minds that are driving change. See you next time.